And today we're talking Barcelona, Bayern Munich in totality. And I have been reading your tweets. I know that you fortunately did not, to my understanding, did not watch my 5 headlines, which is great because we're not going to overlap too much. That said, I feel like we're going to agree a lot more than we have in past shows, to the point that we're even wearing very similar the Barcelona Podcast merchandise shirts today. So I think there at least will be a little bit of unity as we go through this game, the Barcelona Bayern Munich game. And I think where we need to start, Levon, is with the big picture, right? The intangible feelings before we get into tactics. Sergio Busquets, Pedri, Lewandowski, what Bayern did right and what Barcelona did right or did wrong. So I think there is fair criticism in the optimism that this is progress. This result, not the 2-0, but this game itself in totality, that means progress and that will lead to better results. But the counter to that is that Barcelona has yet to still get over the hump of a big European night. And it's been half a decade since Barcelona you've really truly felt like they got over a big European night. So as I said, things can be two things. This coping with the match result through positivity or feeling demoralized about another European failure is certainly a spectrum. And knowing you, I assume that you don't fall necessarily exactly on that spectrum. So more plainly, what do you say to those who are criticizing others for either being too positive or too negative after this match? And where do you stand on that? I guess we'll say the spectrum of positivity and negativity.
Well, one match is just a match. So it's very difficult to draw conclusions. Bayern is a very tough opponent. Anytime we can either beat Bayern or lose from Bayern, and this is when we have a good team. We won Champions Leagues twice, in which during the campaign we faced Bayern, and the last time Bayern outplayed us for most of the match, and that was with the Neymar, Luis Suarez, Lionel Messi trident up front. And even the previous time when we beat them 4-0 at home in our first treble, away we played 1-1. So it's always difficult to play against Bayern. We could have won this match, which is great. Of course, what is not great is that we did not win it after signing Lewandowski, Koundé, and Rafinha, plus Christensen and Kessie. So I think it's right for people's expectations to be very high. I think it is okay to be critical if we play poorly. However, you should always judge what happens on the pitch more than what happens on the scoreboard. Because if not, then maybe you should stop watching football and just check the scores in the next morning.
Well, one of the signings you did miss was Alonso, so I do want to start there with that lineup that Xavi had picked. Mm-hmm. Before the game, you and I had the exact same one. We had Dembele, Lewandowski, Rafinha up top, so we were right on that. We had Pedri, we had Gabi, we had Busquets in midfield, right on that. But then that back line is where things really went haywire. You and I both agreed that it probably should be Balde, Garcia, Araujo, and Koundé. That so far has been the best back line that Xavi has put out there this season, and Ter Stegen, of course, in net. But Xavi kind of switches things up, goes with Marcos Alonso, goes with Andres Christensen, and when asked about it even pregame, Xavi said that he went with Christensen over Garcia because of height, and if Xavi said it, I should believe him. My thinking is also that having seen Garcia 2 matches ago now go down, not even down, but leave the game prematurely for a knock. They said it was precautionary, but I'm also of the belief that maybe he's not 100%. And obviously, why would you admit that, or why would you say anything about that? That said, though, Christensen, it could have been just down as simple. The guy's played in big matches, and you need all your center backs to be able to contribute over the course of a season. And why would Christensen not be able to contribute at a high level, especially if you're going to bring him in and pay him wages and have him as a part of your team? So as far as Alonso and Christensen, I think people are directly looking at the goals. And, you and I can break down the second one in a second. I think you had a really good actual, almost frame-by-frame breakdown of it. But for the first goal, I can't really get beyond the fact that Lucas Hernandez got loose of Marcos Alonso, rose up, headed it in the goal, Bayern up 1-0. It had to do a lot with Bayern also having a bit of intensity coming out in the second half. The Goretzka switch was also different, or actually an impactful and important positive move for Nagelsmann. So we can talk about how all that kind of leads to the set-piece goal, but still, in a vacuum, it's one moment, a set piece. the corner happens because of a Dembele giveaway, and then again Alonso loses his man.
I mean,
That said, you think that Balde and Alba really would have made the same mistake, but they wouldn't have because the matchups would have been different. And again, then you're just playing what if over the course of 90 minutes, and I think that's impossible to do. So yeah, I mean, this is Alonso's first start for Barcelona. How did you grade it? I didn't see your grades. Did you come out with that?
oh, I didn't send out the grades yet, so I should do this. But let's start with the goal, because that first goal, Irony of ironies, Alonso is better in the air than Balde and Jordi Alba. Like,
Yeah.
if I send a cross into the box to three players, those three players being Alonso, Alba, and Balde, then I put my money on Alonso being the one to claim it.
I mean, he's almost a full head. He's like almost a full head length taller as well. I mean, that's a really important part of that.
Yeah, and for headers, it's not just whether you're tall or not. Here, physicality also matters. So if you're skinny, then for a header, you're just going to get pushed away. It helps be strong to have like some body on you, because Busquets is tall, but he's not really that great on corners. What I thought was worse than Alonso losing his man was Ter Stegen not being there. Because that corner came way too close to the goal for somebody to head it in without the goalkeeper coming out to punch it. Like, he was right there. He was right there. So it was not just Alonso's mistake. Ter Stegen, who really should know better, but Ter Stegen has never been very strong at this anyway, right? It's always been one of his weakest parts as a goalkeeper. But yeah, it's a pity because Ter Stegen had a very good match until the goal. He was great with the ball at his feet. His passing was quite well, especially because it was difficult for him to pass the ball because Bayern was very intense defensively. But yeah, that's the first goal in a nutshell. I've got the ratings here, so these ratings are something that myself, Neil Gardner, Kai, whose Twitter LDAP is J de Position, like positional play, and Doma, who everybody also knows from Barça Twitter, and Captain Guardiola. This time Doma could not join us. He missed the match, so he couldn't rate it. But every match, all of us rate the players that played, minus the ones who were subbed in the last 10 minutes or so. But so we were talking about Marcos Alonso, and we actually rated him 6.6. I rewatched the match this morning in order to. I was bored, I guess. So I rewatched it this morning, and I actually thought Alonso was quite well, and it is very interesting that we signed him because it does not seem that Xavi is going to give up on Balde, but everything points towards Barcelona pushing out Jordi Alba either this winter or next summer.
Oh, I think it comes out next summer. Looking at his salary as well as the fact that Marcos Alonso is on a 1-year deal. I mean, that tells you exactly where 40 or 50 million euros are going to go next summer. It's going to go to the left back spot, and whether Balde's there or not, I mean, I think they're going to just figure something out. It's going to be a 2-person platoon, and you look at all those other, we'll say, elite clubs who are able to spend all of those positions, like left back. I mean, look at Man City, right? I mean, that's ideally, money wise, them and PSG almost don't count, but so many other clubs, right? They're like, their fullback spots are 1A and kind of 1B, but really, 2A or whatever it may be, right? Like 1B and 2A if it's not perfect, what have you. But I agree with you on Marcos Alonso. I think between he and Christensen, they know each other from their Chelsea days. I think that was helpful with Christensen as a left center back and Alonso as the left back. But I think the way that I've seen Dembele work with different right backs that Barcelona have had over the years, whether it's Semedo or Des when he was back there, or even Sergio Roberto. That partnership doesn't really ever seem to work well, Dembele and Roberto. So to see Dembele, especially when he started on the left with Alonso, it could have been a lot worse. And I think that's kind of how I felt going away from Marcos Alonso's performance. Like, if his first start for a new club, and he's obviously a high-level player, plays with the Spanish national team, played with Chelsea, has played, multiple locations and played at a high level, sure. So you'd expect that he's going to at least give you something. But as I said, I think I come out of it, both he and Christensen, going, yeah, that really could have been a lot worse. I mean, they were part of Barcelona, especially on the press, where you have to know people, you have to have an understanding of your teammates, and understanding of positioning. So in Chelsea's system, I mean, just of what I understood from them last season, I mean, generally playing in a double pivot when they were looking to press, they also weren't pressing as high as Barcelona were. So in that first half, when it's almost counterintuitive here, but as Barcelona were better at, we'll say, gegenpressing or pressing, and Bayern were not in the first half per se, but over the course of 90 minutes, the better team at building up and eventually breaking through that pressure, right? It's counterintuitive because that's the thing that Barcelona is supposed to be better at. That's the thing that Bayern Munich is supposed to be better at. But again, to be one of the best teams in world football now, you've got to be able to do all of it at a high level. And the teams that do all those things at the highest level can do it. And so for Alonso to understand the positioning of Busquets, and I'm kind of transitioning you here into talking about the second goal here, but when Busquets was defending and pressing in the way that he was so far up the pitch, is for Alonso to understand the nuance of kind of when he had to peel in a little bit, when he had to continue to be aware of Pavard, and then, well, that was at the first 10 minutes. Pavard didn't do anything, got hurt. But then to understand when he needed to make sure he stayed at home on Mazraoui. And there were a few times when Mazraoui got the best of him. But really the only time that I thought Alonso struggled was when Musiala would drift out to the right wing, would start his move in the middle, and then he and Christensen or Araujo, they wouldn't switch off quick enough. That communication just wasn't exactly there. So Alonso would be kind of a step slow to Musiala. And fortunately for him, I mean, that doesn't really lead to anything. That being Alonso getting out to, or getting, we'll say, undone, because in the same way, Dembele undid Mazraoui a ton of times too, and it didn't necessarily lead to anything, as we know, Barcelona's way, but it did because they had 7 key chances that could have led to a goal. But yeah, let's go over that second Bayern goal first. People really, I mean, again, this is your point here. They were really going in on Busquets there, but looking at where he was on the field and how that press is situated, it's not necessarily him. There's a lot of different names you could throw out there about taking credit or blame for it. That's Koundé, that's Araujo, that's Christensen, maybe Alonso. I don't think too much on Pedri, looking at the fact that he was marking Kimmich at the time, and Kimmich was kind of pushing forward as, and then
I mean,
on the other side of it,
pretty much,
yeah, go ahead.
pretty much anybody except Busquets. Busquets did not need to take those extra steps forward to lightly press there, but at the same time, just because of the circumstance of that play, he was very high up the pitch, and the other midfielders were very well aware of it. Busquets also looked back and checked and gesticulated to make sure that they were aware of it. So even if Busquets had tracked back faster, which a lot of people are saying that he should have, he is not the one who would have broken up that play, because there were a lot of other people closer to the play. And in our pressing system, it just so happens that, yes, sometimes Busquets might press a little bit further forward. Usually it's Pedri Gavi who press further forward, but sometimes it might be Busquets, and the rest of the team should be aware. Gavi could have gone back, dropped a little bit deeper to pick that up. Both Christensen and Koundé could have positioned themselves a little bit better. Araujo, however, he is the guy who can do no wrong because everybody loves him. He's also, together with Dembele, Araujo is my favorite player. So, I get told that I have some kind of crazy secret agenda against him when I criticize him. It's not the case. He's my favorite player together with Dembele, and also, to be honest, my favorite person together with Dembele on that team. But Araujo gets caught flat-footed because he follows Müller, who is running offside. And by the time that Araujo realizes that, it's too late, because he needs to turn around to catch a Sané who is going full speed towards Ter Stegen with nobody to stop him. So on that play, there were a lot of little mistakes, and Araujo basically rolling out the red carpet. Now, admittedly, it's a very difficult play, and Muller is a master at making
Mm-hmm.
the exact movement to mess up the defense. So it's not a matter of, hey, it is Araujo's fault. It's just hilarious that everybody is convinced that it's Busquets' fault, where in fact nobody recovered more balls than Busquets yesterday.
Yeah, there was a play. I'm trying to remember the first. I believe it was still in the second half though, when his legs were starting to go. That being Busquets, you could see that he and Lewandowski. I mean, they were laboring just a bit, but I don't blame him for that at all because if he had proper coverage coming off the bench for some kind of reason to do a semblance of what he could do, then he would have been substituted in that match. But there was a point where Busquets was, as we had said, the highest up there on the press, and yet he still came back to double with Alonso on one of those moves from Musiala.
True.
I believe it was in the second
Yeah,
half.
it was in the second half.
Yeah,
it was in the second half.
So I want to put the shoe on the other foot a little bit too, because not to again continue to try silver linings, but I want to remind people that this match, and this is where I'm overtly positive about what this means for Barcelona moving forward, is that this match was played at such a high level. I mean, you felt like this was a quarterfinal or a semifinal of the Champions League. Like, it wasn't just the atmosphere. It wasn't just the Bavarian fans as a 12th man. It was that when Barcelona and Bayern Munich, there are parts of both teams that tell you that they're still trying to figure it out. The pieces are still being put together. And again, I was talking to a Bayern Munich friend of mine, and he was saying that he was, not to say pleasantly surprised, but at the level that match was played at, he was just as nervous in that first half as Kool-Aid's were, right? Kool-Aid's have that extra added thing, like what if things go wrong? But he had said the attack, as scary as Mane, Muller, Gnabry, Sané, and Musiala as a quintet seemed to be, there was that moment when Mane and Muller smacked into each other, and he had said that was more indicative of kind of what you've been seeing in the Bundesliga for the last few matches, where the attack without Lewandowski is something that they're still trying to figure out. But what it can also lead to, and what it may lead to if they do figure it out in the spring, is that on that goal, Musiala, with his positioning, with Muller attracting other attention, again, Araujo being stuck between two minds, Musiala kind of starts his move from the wing, comes inside, and then the ball he plays into Sané, he just puts it right in his path. It's a perfect ball for Musiala to set up Sané, who is at a full head of steam. And so when you have players who are that talented and just that gosh darn good things are going to happen occasionally, right? And you have to, on the other side, take care of your moments. So we're going to do that in a second. But before that, I also want to say on the other side with Rafinha, how people were like, oh, where'd he go? He was absent. He wasn't really absent. He had his one chance that kind of went a little bit wide. So he did fluff that one opportunity, at another long shot as well. But Alfonso Davies from that game, I think people were kind of saying, oh, I didn't realize he was that strong and that fast or whatever. But his tactical positioning is just incredible. Like, before that match, the two areas that we keyed on, as in those who were trying to figure out where Bayern's holes were, was going to be A, behind Davies. We know that he gets forward, therefore you got to spray those long balls, those diagonal balls in behind him. Or it's when Bayern are looking to press. That means they're always leaving the other wing. Sometimes it's Davies, sometimes the other side. That other wing is always a bit exposed too, because they're bringing that extra man into midfield to help out with the numerical advantage. So they're looking to try to build through the middle, which is what they did for the second goal, but you want to get the long ball over. We saw Lewandowski had a chance to even get that ball off to Rafinha in the first half. It was a 1v1 situation, and he just underhit a little bit, right? So those opportunities were there for Barcelona. That said, with how good Davies is positionally, he limits those opportunities. He limits, just even if you know where the holes are for Bayern Munich, he limits the number of times you can try to exploit those, because he's just so smart on the ball and just technically too. I mean, it's one thing to, with speed and strength, go in for a 50-50 ball, but very much, not to compare him in any other way to Busquets, but Busquets and Pedri, when they go in for 50-50, it's something about the softness of their touch, whatever it is. They just seem to kind of pop the ball out from the opponent's possession and take possession themselves. And Davies is that good technically too. Like, you can go in 50-50, and it's not his speed and his athleticism and his strength that necessarily are winning him those 50-50 balls. It's the fact that he he has such control over the ball that he just pokes it far enough away from Rafinha where he can get his body positioned around him, and now he has possession right back.
Yeah, well,
so Davies was just fantastic, and it's okay to be at the same level as, not even be at the same level, but like it's a credit as well as Bayern Munich just to have really, really high level players. Like that's where that game was played.